Hey guys, Jack Goldman here, starting my very first YouTube video, and what better topic than to discuss Donald Trump, the hottest politician right now in the GOP field. Maybe even the hottest politician right now in the presidential field. Hillary Clinton, you might want to take notice of that. Here's the question though, why? I mean, when he announced his candidacy, didn't the media say clown for president? And they made fun, and they thought he was a joke? When his poll numbers originally rose, didn't the GOP establishment say, well, voters right now aren't really serious about who they want to actually nominate? And now, 60 days away from Iowa, his poll numbers haven't fallen, they've actually risen. In fact, the GOP put out a memo discussing what they're going to do if he becomes the nominee. So this is a great question from a political science point of view and from a political pundit point of view. Why is Donald Trump a serious contender for the GOP nomination, serious contender for being the next president of the United States? Well, from the GOP point of view, it's very simple. For the last 6 years, GOP voters have put in Republican candidates who have given them what in return? In the last election, they took the Senate as well. What did they get in return? GOP voters are sick of voting in candidates and getting nothing for that vote. What have voters gotten? Ask your average Republican voter, what have they gotten by voting Republicans into office? Stop Obama? They haven't stopped him. Almost every issue, they've backed down and given in. And so what GOP voters are really worried about is, okay, they'll put in another GOP president. They'll come out in numbers, and they'll get nothing for it. They'll get a president who just speaks words and says politically correct statements. And they're sick of it. Next point. Donald Trump's not immune to this, but at least he admitted that when he was asked about why he wants to be president, I think in one of the interviews he did say that it eventually will increase value to the Trump brand name. So Donald Trump at least admitted that he's running for president for ulterior motives. How many politicians, Hillary Clinton, and on the GOP side, Jeb Bush and all the others as well, how many of them have told us, I'm running for the American people. I care about the American people. I care about this country. Maybe true. But that's not your main motive for why you're running. Hillary Clinton doesn't know about the middle class for the last 60 years of her life, or maybe 50 years of her life. She hasn't lived the life of a struggling American. She doesn't feel for them or care for them. She lives a life of wealth, and she's in bed, as Bernie Sanders pointed out, with Wall Street. Hillary Clinton only cares about one person, Hillary Clinton. Why is she running for president? Because ever since she's been a girl in college, she's had this dream of being the first female president of the United States. And similar on the GOP side, how many of them are really running first and foremost because they care about America and they care about the American people? No, that could be a motive. I'm not saying that that's not true. But their first and foremost concern is, I want the prestige and the honor that comes with the office of President of the United States. Another point. Americans are sick of politicians that lie to them, that look into a camera and tell them lies, say whatever they think that the American people want to hear. You don't get that with Trump. And now the GOP put out a memo to their other candidates. You should try and be more like Donald Trump. What? Authentic? I have news for you. You can't imitate authenticity. You're either authentic or you're not. And people like the fact that Donald Trump is authentic. Do they agree with everything he says? Probably not. But at least they like the fact that he speaks his mind and he doesn't just try and tell them what they want to hear. Think of it this way. Who would you rather talk to at a party? Some guy who's just going to say yes to everything you have to say? Or someone who will tell you their honest opinion on things? Did you ever think maybe that's also who people would vote for over the other guy? an honest politician over someone who just says whatever they think I want to hear and then does whatever they want once they get what they want, which is the president's office. But let's assume Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States. It has pros and cons to it, for sure. One of the pros is Trump isn't worried about being politically correct, which means he'll probably do what he feels is right and not worry about what people are going to say or what his poll numbers are going to drop or rise, especially once he's in office. So we'll have a president who will actually take action. But that has a con as well. Trump could also be a loose cannon. Sometimes it's not good to take action all the time right away. Sometimes you want someone who's going to be cautious and careful and think. And so the question is, what will we get with Trump? Just a guy who acts on a whim? A guy who does what he feels is right? We need something that's a combination of both. And Trump, so far, has yet to fully convince people that he's going to be, a president who will act, but think before he acts. I don't even have to discuss the fact that Americans are sick of the lobbyists and the special interests. Now, as someone who's a political science major, I'll tell you straight up that lobbyists and special interests happen to be a good thing for the political system. I'm not going to get into that. Maybe it'll be another video. But the image that they give off to the American people is that they can buy any politician they want and they can buy his vote. And people like the fact that with Trump, they know that's not true. So at least that image, people know, does not apply to Donald Trump. He will not make a law with Congress or sign a law, since the president doesn't actually make laws, but he will not sign a law and he will not lobby Congress for a law just because someone tries to offer him money. And that's something the American people like. He won't make an executive action because someone offers a donation. Is Trump going to be a great negotiator? I think like this, that as a businessman, you can't say that Trump isn't a good negotiator. That's one of the key elements to being a successful businessman, is you know how to negotiate. What I'll say about Trump, I don't know if he can negotiate with Putin or this person or that person, but I know one thing. Trump will not negotiate from a point of weakness like President Barack Obama does. Trump would have never done the Iran deal because it was negotiating from a point of weakness when we had leverage. Trump will use leverage and negotiate from a point of strength. Compromise? He'll probably have to compromise, but he'll negotiate from a point of strength and not weakness. And now entertainment value? How could that be a pro for being president? Well, think of it this way. The average American voter is not involved in politics. He's disenfranchised. He doesn't care. He doesn't feel that it's relevant to him. But almost every American loves sensationalism and entertainment. And I find it hard to believe that Donald Trump won't, either purposely or accident or just by his nature, add entertainment value to the White House, to the presidency. So that could be a con, because we're not looking for an entertainer-in-chief. But it's also a pro because it could get more Americans involved in the political process. Maybe through the back door, but still, it's a good thing. More Americans get involved and become interested. And hopefully they'll stay involved and interested after Trump's presidency. Two big points that worry me about Donald Trump. Number one is, in the end of the day, is he a Republican or a Democrat? How is he going to govern? From the left, the right, the center? I still don't know that fully. I'm tending to think, as someone who has an R to his name, he will be more Republican than Democrat. But I don't think he's going to be Mr. Super Conservative if he gets in office. Next point. In the end of the day, he's a businessman. He doesn't know about foreign policy, and he doesn't know about domestic policy. I don't think so, at least. And that's why he hasn't spoken in a lot of details about these points. So it could be that, you surround yourself with people who do know, and you take their advice seriously. and that could be a substitute. We've had other presidents that really had no idea what they're doing. Barack Obama knows nothing about foreign policy. That could actually be a strengthening point to the con, because look at what's happened to the world when you put a president who doesn't know anything about foreign policy. Here's some questions I hope if Donald Trump ever sees this video, he'll take to heart and answer. Donald, how are you going to settle a $19 trillion debt? Are you going to honestly tell us that we're going to be able to pay it off? That's like a guy who works as a cashier who owes $300,000 in credit card bills, and he says, working as a cashier, I'm going to pay off that debt. Nothing against cashiers, but in the end of the day, sometimes the debt, you're in over your head. So Donald, how are you going to handle the $19 trillion debt that Barack Obama, mainly, I believe 17 million from him, how are you going to handle getting rid of that debt? Because it is strangling our economy. Next question. I don't think you're a loose cannon, Donald, who will just wake up one day and say, I feel like nuking Russia or ISIS. But under what circumstances would you consider using a nuclear weapon? If ISIS did a terrorist attack with chemical warfare, would you think about nuking ISIS then? So, in what scenario would you use a nuclear weapon, if any? Here's another point. You have answered that because you don't know a lot about foreign policy and because you don't know a lot about domestic policy, per se, that you're surrounding yourself with smart people, and I believe you've done that as a businessman. You surrounded yourself and you hired smart people, and it's worked. But you haven't told us who's going to be in your administration. We want to know who these smart people are. I mean, one of the reasons voters know that Jeb Bush is not authentic when he says he's not going to be like his brother is he has listed who's going to be in his administration. And it's the same people that were in the previous Bush administration. The gang getting back together. So who's going to be in your administration? What smart people are you going to surround yourself around? And here's a question. I always said that if Barack Obama would have said, hey, listen, in 2012, had he said, or 2010, had he said, I tried to be president because I thought I'd do a good job. I did an awful job. I'm not running for re-election. I think a lot of people would have respected him. Donald Trump, if after 4 years you see that you haven't accomplished what you said, which is making America a great nation again and a nation of winning, you haven't even slightly shown a trajectory that with another term you could do that, will you not run for re-election? Will you be able to get up and say, listen, I couldn't make America great again? Or will you sell as a bag of goods and say, no, it's great, everything's doing great? Are you someone who would fire yourself if you weren't getting the job done right? I hope you guys who watched this video enjoyed it. Please share it on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.